This week on Rockstar Superhero. What do you do when you encounter genius? Do you let it overwhelm you? Do you ask it questions to better understand its impossible point of view? Typically, I sit in awe and do my best impression of a smart person so I can at least hang on some level. That's about all I could do when I connected with Tim and Chris from the musically ambitious High Castle Teleorkestra. There's just so much to learn and see and hear, and the band is just bonkers. So the best bet is to just hang on for dear life and enjoy whatever comes of these questions, because it's never what you or I expected. This is Tim Smolens and Chris Bogen of the experimental mindblow known as High Castle Teleorkestra, and this somehow remains to be Rockstar Superhero. I love not only the discoveries of cool new projects that obviously that you guys have put together, but just, where you've come from, what's turned into you, into the human you are, and how much if you even appreciate the level of influence you have. Because I was talking to, and I guess this is a sort of the first question really, but I was talking to a buddy of mine on the East Coast. He lives out in Maine. He actually has his own band, of course, and his name is Jason Ingalls, and he's actually a fan of you guys. And I thought that was really interesting because, he knows you from other projects, etc. So when he heard about this, and then he heard I was talking to you guys, he basically begged me to get involved. And I'm stoked because I love that people out there know who you are and know about your repertoire and know about your influence in the business and appreciate you for what you do versus this idea of celebrity and the guy on the stage who we're supposed to worship. It's a strange thing. Right. So all that being said, let's just jump in. But if you could be so bold, where do those disparate musical influences come from? I typically am pretty hateful of the influence question, but I think, we all grow up, as I mentioned earlier, whether it's Captain Antonio or the Fugs, Mothers of Invention, Soft White Underbelly, Hound Dog Taylor, for God's sake, whatever we're listening to, it affects us. And then we have our family, and then we have the local culture, the town culture, right? The kind of the political culture, the way things affect us. Yeah. So how do you think you guys evolved into who you are today? Because that doesn't happen on accident. There's some will there, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. For me, it was, Chris and I are about the same age, so we obviously didn't come the same path. We've only known each other a couple of years now. But I think we sort of hit a lot of the same boxes as we grew up, although there's a lot of differences there too. I was 9 years old, I think, and I went to La Bamba. That was the big thing for me. I saw La Bamba in the movie theater, and that was it. I play guitar now. I made my parents go get me lessons, and it was from there. I never stopped. What was out? Guns N' Roses was huge for me. Appetite for Destruction. Still love that record to this day, and will defend it with my life compared to any of the other glam records that were out at that time. Sure. And then probably got into some of the grunge stuff. And then somewhere there in high school, so we were playing in bands, we were playing rock and kind of whatever was cool, some 80s metal type of stuff. Then it turned, we better be grungy now kind of thing. We were in junior high and high school. And, I grew up, my dad was a emergency room doctor, but he's very supportive. He's just he had kind of a crappy upbringing. He's kind of just wanted to do the opposite. I'm just gonna give we pretty much spoiled in a way, but with band equipment. It's you need a studio, let's get a studio. You need this. Wow. And so instead of going out and partying in high school, I was also a late bloomer, so I didn't really want to go out and party because all the people were hooking up, and I'm I still look like I'm in fourth grade. So I'm sure. I'm just gonna stay home and play guitar. And eventually I switched to bass. When grunge came along, I switched to bass because it wasn't cool. I was already too good at guitar because it wasn't cool anymore. So I switched to bass. Then somewhere in there, you know, let's just, without getting into specifics, say we were doing some stuff that that kids do in high school, and somehow that Mr. Bungle album came into the picture.
Oh, there it is.
In a altered state of a 10th grader and 11th grader, and things were never the same again at all. So it was really about, like, first it was like we were trying to kind of be Bungle. I don't know if you've ever heard the band I was in at that time, Don Salsa. It sort of became a Stratosphere. Jason, the guitarist, and I, my brother Doug, played drums. It was very much like a high school like homage to to Mr. Bungle.
Nice.
It was we were too young for it to be lame. Like, it's a really, I'll send you the record. It's a pretty extreme record. But after Disco Volante came out, kind of wrapping this up just a little bit, we were starting to explore like those influences. It was less about like Bungle and more about like, oh, so there's like this whole Italian film genre that they're sort of pointing at, or that they just had all these little like things that if you would go down the rabbit hole and figure out where they got influence in that, you found this whole world of sort of exotic music, and then, formed a Stratosphere and everything that led up to that. But that's sort of just the general trajectory that my music taste came. And these days it's like we listen more to those wormholes of influences, stuff from the 50s, 60s, 70s, soundtracks, different countries. It's more about those things for me than it is like this band or that band. There's a couple of those things, but I'm more about soundtracks and music from different countries than I am about like, oh, what's the next band? I mean, there probably is a great band that I just haven't heard it, but
yeah.
What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I guess I have some similar points to hit there, but I'm thinking all the way back to like when I was in elementary school, and my thought of music was really small, like Top 40 radio and whatever my parents had on the stereo. And my cousins had this older brother that I wasn't related to because it was a different marriage, but he was like a high school kid. We were like elementary school, and he had like AC/DC and Van Halen. And
did he have Twisted Sister?
He had Stay Hungry, and
that's a good
nice. There you go.
He had Diary of a Madman and
Crocus,
Peace of Mind, Crocus,
of course.
Yeah, so he had all that stuff, and
they're called Headhunter.
They would sneak over to the house with these records, and we would go into my room with a Fisher Price record player and play like Ozzy, Diary of a Madman. I can't really say that I was into it, but I knew that I wasn't supposed to listen to it. My mom comes by. She's like, "What are y'all doing?" "Well, we're listening to jazz, Mom." Because you could tell her like, "Hey, this is Ozzy." Like, she would tear the record up because, I mean, I lived in Mississippi growing up, and But I think that just kind of turned me onto the idea of like, there's this whole other world of music out there, and there's like this excitement to sharing your music with somebody. And I eventually got into, I think Guns N' Roses was probably the first time I got into a band and was like, I want to be in a band, like I'm going to buy the t-shirt and I wear the Guns N' Roses t-shirt. And I got into a school band. I think that's probably had a more lasting influence on me and the way that I work. Just appreciating all the work that has to go into an ensemble and all the compromises you have to make to be a good, big musical family. Somewhere along that line, I got a guitar and did a lot of home recording. I was a lot like Tim. I didn't like to party when I was in high school. I kind of buddied up with a guy, and we recorded hours and hours and boxes of 4-track tapes of just silly songs about something funny that happened that day. And I also, like Tim said, I had the same kind of milestone where I heard Disco Volante, and that was like it was like everything I liked all intersecting in one place. So that, and also Chet Atkins and Jerry Reed guitar stuff was a big rabbit hole for me that I went down for I guess I never got out of it really.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the 90s, I got into that stuff and dug into it. So, and, you know, I'm a lot like Tim. I listen to music, but most of it's old stuff, and I'm not really following a lot of the new stuff. Now and then I'll check out stuff as it comes along. But anyway,
bunch of boomers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I fit in the boomer category. Actually, I think I'm 2 years.
I'm totally cool with it. I wear it.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Everything from yacht rock, you name it, man. I personally like it all. And I love talking to guys like you because you've both done so much with that, right? You're constantly looking to innovate and experiment and push towards the edge. And I never had the balls to do it. And probably because, at least where I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of access. So what I knew about music was either like the greatest hits of Tom Jones or what was playing on a country station, because I lived in rural Northwest America, where, that's all we had was, going back to Chet Atkins, that's all we had was the Oak Ridge Boys, right? And, Delilah, isn't that the song? Oh, no, Elvira, excuse me. With that kind of sound. And so I love that, a couple years later, I ended up moving to Olympia, Washington, which is probably the most liberal sort of artistic city in the country outside of maybe Austin, Texas.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah. And I mean, it's an extraordinary place, and I'm so grateful for that experience, because all of a sudden I was discovering, UK and Aztec Camera and King Crimson, and things that were really pushing me hard as a musician. And I'm a former session drummer, so I wanted to play anything that had lots of notes in it. I wasn't caring about the songs. I wanted stuff that would, that felt experimental, that would push me. And it's probably why I'm drawn to your material, because it's not that it's aggressive in its design, but it is radical and original. And so I'm curious, was, based on what you shared a second ago, was innovation your primary focus? Is that the direction, like you had to go there first?
I think that like obviously in our younger years, it was like, especially with that, when Bungle kind of blew the roof off our musical universe.
Yeah.
It was more about like, oh, that's so crazy. Like, and for even through Stratosphere years, there's definitely, I think it took a while before it came back to like, oh, you can just play with like a good feel or whatever. So like, I think we kind of go both ways in this record, where it is a crazy record, but it's also, I really honestly think, and I've even made pop records, I think it may be the most listenable record I've ever, but it's still totally nuts. I mean, I don't know if you've read any of there's some reviews kind of coming out of this record, and they're really struggling to put words on like, what do I call this? It's kind of cute to see someone try, and like, even if they don't succeed, it's like, I get it. I don't know what I would say either. Yeah. So at this point, it's not really about like, it's gotta be so crazy. It's more about making, I think those influences we have, those more like easy listening influences, whether it's like, surf rock or Esquivel or some of the Exotica stuff. Chris has got a much bigger record collection than I have, but there's really that vibe is permeating the entire record, even though there's like some metal here and there that gets pretty nuts. You get more of that like 50s easy listening vibe as much as you get any kind of metal or anything on our record. So the goal for me is not to be the craziest thing ever. It's really to just sort of tell a story, that we're trying to find a cohesive narrative, through the music, I think.
Yeah. It's a fun record. I mean, I don't think you have to make it crazy. I mean, you are correct in what you were saying a second ago. It's like the younger we are, the more we're focused then at the time of, like I was as a young drummer, I wanted to play like Terry Bozzio, right? I wanted to be able to fit as many notes into a bar as I could, and I wanted to be able to play it cleanly, right? And I think as we get older and as we become sort of wiser songwriters, you guys are proof that you can take something and drift a bit into esoterica, but at the same time make it listenable and palatable and fun. It's a really, really fun record.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I think to tail on to that, what Tim was saying, I think collectively, like, we're just trying to tell a story, but I think individually, like behind the scenes, like we certainly do push each other a bit. And I don't know if it's so much towards like we must innovate, we must do something different. But I mean, there's certainly instances where we would challenge each other to say, this does sound like just like a 1950s exotica record, but this is kind of boring. Like, let's try this,
Right.
This will fit with this part of the story better, and it will be more engaging. I think those conversations happen a lot, but certainly not so much like this must be innovative. There's a lot of comfort food. There's a lot of musical comfort food in the record, I would think.
We sort of let things unfold like intuitively. Like in my mind, like if I sketch something out, like a song I might have written like on a piano and just humming a melody like 15 years ago, I feel that somewhere beneath the surface, like the finished song is already there and you're just kind of uncovering it, like the morsels of the song and the germs for the song. Just to give you an example of like our process. So we've got this Philip K. Dick book that we've based it on called Radio Free Albemuth, which is a discarded book that he ended up rewriting as one of his like masterpieces. But we just kind of liked this one as like a good thing to follow for a band. For some reason, there's like the guy works in a record company and a record store, and there's subliminal messages that he's putting on record. It really is like you couldn't hand a better, book to a weird band and just say, here, let's use this as our framework. So
right.
I'm not gonna say Chris and I like had the whole thing mapped out and planned. We were kind of like, okay, it's based on the book. We don't know how direct it's gonna be. And as the 2-year process unfolded, we were just like allowing things to the book to inform the decisions of the songs. Actually, there's 30 chapters. We're doing 3 albums, so it's just linear, 10 chapters in a row. Just to give you an example of our process, the first chapter, I'll try to make this brief, but there's a narrator, his life's going nowhere, and he works in this record store in Berkeley. It must have been like the 50s, I think, in the story. So he's just talking about all of these records coming across his desk. Some that he likes, some of these going into the listening booth and listening, some he can't stand. Oh, they're buying this, Jan Garbarek album, and these people are idiots. So I must have sold 5,000 of these things. And so he mentions all of these different songs. He mentions a Stravinsky song, the Firebird Suite. That's actually the first thing you hear on the egg when it goes into that metal thing. That's the Firebird Suite. So we just decided, let's make this really weird, like psychedelic medley of every song they're mentioning. And I didn't know how. I was so intimidated. Remember, Chris, I kept putting it off. Like, I don't know what to do with this. I don't want it to just be this song, then this song, then this song. And, there's like a German liberal war march, and the guys going up and down Berkeley singing these German lyrics, and those make their way in there too. And so, yeah, it's just a whole weird mishmash medley that is suggested by the book. We're like, why not? Yeah. Let's just go there. Yeah, we haven't even. Last thing, we haven't even hit the subliminal message part of the book yet, which is going to be the next 2. So,
wow. What were you going to say, Chris?
I was saying even the track sequence of the album was really left to chance. We knew, okay, this song will be this chapter and whatnot, but we never even
didn't know why or how.
We never considered like, are these actually going to sound good when they're all played together? And we trusted it, and I think it works. Like it's like a journey.
Yeah. It's funny too, because even looking at the artwork, the album feels like it's like a companion piece to like, something that would be Saturn nominated movie, right? Like a Boy and His Dog. It looks like it fits in that weird sort of half sci-fi culture place that, where the world is not, what's the word I'm thinking of? It's not like a dystopian thing, but it's a curious thing. Am I way off?
It gets pretty dystopian, especially in the next 2 versions of it. We have like a video and visual team that's like full-time on board with us. So, I mean, our art visual guy, David Dines, he knows these books better than we do. He knows all this music that we come up from. He's been fans of it for years. So he'll come up with some little concept based on reading the chapter. And, Chris and I have read the books, but sometimes my take on it can be pretty superficial. Like, oh, he went and he's going to move to Southern California. Or something. David's like, no, what really happened in that chapter was this. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's cool too. Let's do that, And so he's right on top of it with the visual stuff. So.
No, it helps to have somebody who's passionate about it. I mean, it's really easy, again, in the music thing to assume somebody's talking about a specific thing, right? We read into lyrics all the time and we're way off base. I mean, Jesus, how many people get married to Every Breath You Take? I mean, right? People are idiots, man. How did you two connect? I know you've been together a few years. Look, I know the answer to this, but I'm doing this for the audience. Sure. How long have you worked together? Did you know each other through other projects?
Yeah. So I got Tim's ISS album, She's a Girl. And, I had known of him from the work he did with Secret Chiefs 3 and the Stratosphere Records. I was kind of a late bloomer to that stuff. Like I got into it probably around 2013, like hardcore. And so I got the album and I was going through a lot of Beach Boys, Brian Wilson phase, real heavy at the time. And my son and I connected a lot on listening to the Beach Boys. But I saw that Tim's a family guy. I just wrote him a nice message saying how much I enjoyed the album and just, kind of just relating to him like I'm a family guy, blah, blah, blah. I sent him a YouTube video of me playing something from this fingerstyle guitar EP that I did. It was like a Chet Atkins-ified version of the Secret Chiefs 3 song. And he liked it and he said, hey, let's do something sometime. And I just thought he was being nice, polite, but eventually, maybe 6 months plus later, he emailed me asking me if I was into Steely Dan, and I was like, yeah, of course I'm into Steely Dan. And so he wanted to realize this version of the second arrangement, which is this lost legendary song, and we worked on that for a really long time. I would be embarrassed to say how many months we spent on it. But it was
Tears for Fears.
Yeah, it was a meticulous process, and I think he and I both were trying to find a workflow that will allow us to do fun recording projects without like pissing off our families too much and without taking away from all of those precious moments. So I think we really cut our teeth on a workflow during that time. And then after we were done, we just kind of started doing something else, and it became what it is now.
What was your thoughts, Tim?
Oh no, I was just saying, we weren't sure. Like once we finally finished that, which it did take way too long, and really trying to it was this song that ended up getting erased by their engineer when they were making their Gaucho album, and they were so disheartened that they just abandoned it. And it was supposed to be the best song on the album, and I think it may have been, right there next to Babylon Sisters as one of the best. Just so advanced. The chord progressions are. I mean, as much as people turn up their nose at Steely Dan, all the art rockers, I would love to hand them a chord chart. Say, okay, Mr. Guitar, play this. Just play it for me, please, because you can't. It is so sophisticated that it goes over most people's heads. The lyrics, most people don't pay attention to lyrics, but if you get into that, you're like, oh, so there's like this smooth veneer on the outside, but down here there's these lyrics that are hinting at stuff you could never even imagine. And it's so crafty the way they do that. But I was just we didn't have a big budget like they have, or even the studio musicians they had access to. Like, I mean, Chris and I are good, but we're not like, he's not Larry Carlton and I'm not Chuck Rainey, so
pretty talented though.
Yeah. I spent those guys just have this feel. They play one note and you just go, oh my God, like that's the kind of players they would use. So I just wanted to really get that feel. And we just spent a lot of time just kind of really, I'll send it over to you too, but I think it turned out really good. But at the end, then we realized like, maybe there's a band here or whatever. And then eventually the idea dawned on me to like, hey, well, the pandemic was here or whatever. And hey, we'll make this remote band. I know these guys in Norway and France and Australia and they all got a little bit of a name from all of our little work in this incestuous, music scene. And then it's like, we would have been, I joke that we would be working this way regardless of the pandemic, but it makes for a good journalism story that like musicians forced to work from their basement. And man, if only we could be touring. Like, I don't think that's really going to happen unless this thing blows up really big. So who knows? Or once the kids are in college or something, we might be doing the wheelchair tour, but
Yeah. Well, there's also the assumption too that anybody who's released a record is going to tour, right? That there's going to be sort of it's the business element of the music business, right? There's got to be something happening on the backside, or else you're wasting your time. And what about your legend? What about your legacy? And I'm like, dude, what if I just wrote a cool thing with a cool guy and released it, and maybe 5 people think it's completely badass? You know, I mean, we all want more people to hear stuff, but there's something really beautiful about completing a vision.
I mean, what if I don't want to play at the House of Rock and Roll in El Paso again? You know?
yeah. What? That's a perfect way to put it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, I mean, the level we're at, even when I was in a Stratosphere, we weren't. We were playing little dingy things and sleeping on people's floors so that we maybe wouldn't lose money on the tour. We still did, but we were trying, not to spend it on hotels and stuff like that. And it's not very glorious existence. So I mean, my strength is music production. Like that's what I sort of head up that part of the group, and Chris and I work together on that on a daily basis. But I have like the files in my computer, and so Chris and I are constantly sending each other stuff back and forth. And the rest of the guys are, I'm not going to call them like hired guns, but they're just not as involved, and I don't think they have time to be the way that we are, and we don't even expect them to be. We're like, you just play your part or write your little song and we'll get it in there. We're totally happy with it not being, too crowded of a kitchen.
Right.
And it works for them too, to just kind of, latch onto some really cool project that they don't have to do that, they might not have time to put the amount of time Chris and I are putting into it. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, if you're creating something intriguing and again musically interesting, and not just necessarily the thematics of it, but the actual melodic structure of a piece, it's highly motivating, man, when you put it in front of the right guy. I mean, I don't care if you're playing oboe, if there's a spot for it, right? And I mean, look at how it sounds. I mean, what a cool combination of notes and sounds and ideas, simply because you crafted a song, you crafted a great framework, and then seems like you sent it out and said, hey, Timba, tell me what you're going to do with this. You know what I mean?
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, it works. Our workflow is pretty good. It's I wish we could do things a little faster, but we're kind of we've kind of dug ourselves a number of holes with just our commitments of like this. We're not just releasing 10 songs. We're releasing 50 bonus tracks that are all like intricate remix. Like we didn't even realize what we were doing, but that was part of us like launching on Kickstarter. We wanted to make it more than a record. So we made this big thing, and I'm glad we did it, but it was a ton. It was like more work than we were expecting, especially once we were done with the record. We've been mixing nonstop for 3 months since then, while we're also promoting. And it's just like, oh, I didn't realize it was going to be that much work, because we have like entirely alternate versions of the record inside of there that are some people may actually like better.
Wow. Wow. That's cool. That's cool. Are you guys familiar with, I mentioned this when we first started talking, my friend in Maine, his name is Jason Ingalls. He has a band called Echo Response. I'm not sure if you're familiar with.
I haven't heard of him, I don't think.
But they're on the, with the same PR companies, et cetera, connected us. So long story short is, he actually has a question for you. I hope you don't mind. And I think it's a really interesting one. He said, hey, we all know pieces of music can come together quickly and bang, there it is in its final form, more or less. But for the pieces that need more nurturing and gestation, how do you keep from second guessing yourself so as not to have an endless stream of demos lying around?
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
First of all, nothing comes easily for us. There's not a single song that was just like, hey, there it is. Maybe the idea was there, but I don't know. What do you think, Chris? I
think we got lucky in some of the songs. I mean, just speaking for myself, so I'm not throwing anybody under the bus except for me. Is like I have one song that I wrote on the album, and Jesus Christ, like when we were coming up with bonus tracks and looking at the demos, I was like, I started this song 2 years ago or something, and like you start it and you get it so far, and then you hit a wall, and it's just like, okay, like we have plenty of other stuff that we can be working on. Let me go look at that.
Sure.
Like I think that's how we ended up avoiding spinning our wheels too much. Like if we hit, or at least for me, if I hit a wall creatively, I would just kind of set it down for a while and wait. And it just so happened that it worked out for the schedule, and I didn't hold anything up by doing that. But I think a big part of my life and philosophy is just knowing when to put something down and knowing when it's time to rest your mind. So anyway,
sure. For me, I mean,
thoughts?
I could answer it. Yeah. Like, so I've been, making records for a long time now and doing really some of the Stratosphere ones, a ton, really complicated, all the sequencing of the, for me, a lot of it is about what they'd call pre-production, which is like, is our tempo correct? Do we have all the transitions the way we need them to be? Like, we don't actually like to make demos. Like when I make a demo, I'll do it in everything in MIDI. And then I can adjust, tempos and transitions and things like that. But I don't want to like do the song and then start it over. I kind of like to just like get right into it, and I leave it in that MIDI form, because once you start adding audio, if you want to change tempos, you got to stretch the audio. It's not like you can't, but I don't like doing that. I like to get what is the idea, make sure the actual arrangement is it's like old school, right? Like people used to have to write and like make no mistakes, and like that's the book, like they were that good. Of like nowadays we're so used to being able to edit everything, but I think that gets a little blinding. Yeah. What is the idea, like just on paper? And then when you start, whether you use, like what I do, where you're sequencing all these time signatures and tempo changes and things like that, it's a tough question to answer, and it's a really good question. But I basically try not to make a demo other than getting the little MIDI parts going. Yeah. And then I start crafting it into the song it will be and replacing the MIDI parts. So I think it's about having a clear idea of what the song and the transition points are. Because how many times, you've probably dealt with this as a studio drummer, where it's like a part goes right from this to this, and it would have been so cool,
Right. Added a bar, anything
of some kind of retardando or something like that, where you're just like, I listened to some Stratosphere stuff that we did. I was like, man, that would have been better if we did this or this or this. So having a clear idea and just going with it, rather than spending all the time in the purgatory of demo land, I think would be the best way to just start recording it.
Yeah. I think, for guys like yourself or for anybody listening who feels like there's always something churning in their brain, I think the prolific artist just needs to release it, right? And there's a beauty in sitting down behind your instrument of choice and just saying, what I vomit out is supposed to come out, versus, well, maybe it should be an A flat versus E
we don't
flat,
toil and
right?
stuff like that at all.
No.
I like keys. I love keys, but I'll go right to what I want to do. And if it happens to be an A, but I wanted it in A, I don't sit there and try to redo it. Like everything I toil with is like what we're adding on top of this. Not like we should have made this part. And maybe we've made a couple minor arrangement changes.
Yeah, very rare.
Yeah, that didn't used to be the case, because I've made so many of these things now, Chris, at this point, that I really stay away from that stuff. For like, let's get this idea, it's like this isn't directly related to that question, but it's more like, how everyone uses click tracks these days, like, and it gets really sterile. Like I love being on time, but we have, if I could show you some of the things we have, I have so many programmed click tracks where it's like a conductor's programming it. If you listen to that waltz song, which is the second da 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 da, and just the whole thing, it is just you can I have a thing where I can just play in the click the way I want it, or I can copy it from some existing recording and just take that conductor's tempo map and then apply it to ours. It really adds this sort of this breathing sort of the same quality a conductor gives an orchestra with the tempo to rock band, which is harder to do with drums and things like that, but it just sounds so much less sterile. Things like that.
It becomes more like more like incremental prototyping. I guess when you asked the question first and you thought demo, I was thinking our version of demo, which is, like Tim said, you get all of that foundational stuff firmed up. And then, sure, we sort of have internal demos where it's like, okay, I've written this clarinet part and used the MIDI clarinet. We have placeholders of things, but we definitely don't just like scrap it completely and start over like that. I don't think that The only thing that's happened, like Tim said, maybe a few times we've taken a bar and snipped it out or stretched it or something, and that's really rare.
Yeah.
So making a lot of commitments. I know Tim's a big fan of like, hey, I've got this plug-in chain. Oh, this sounds awesome. Let me print it to an audio file. That's it. Like, I'm not going to touch this again. Or let this MIDI instrument. Holy shit, this sounds awesome. Like, print it.
Yeah, I don't let it stay as like even like I like to commit to a sound and I'm done. I'm not going to go back to it. Like if Timba gives me 30 string parts and I'll tell him because he actually knows what he wants. Like I've already got like 200 tracks on the file and I'm like, dude, he knows how to mix and knows how he wants to balance it. So I'm like, can you just send me a stereo file of that? And he does. I'm like, that's it right there. I mean, I'll add some compression. I'll add some EQ, maybe a little bit of a space in there, some kind of echo chamber or something if I want some ambiance. But I don't want like, here's the 14th viola, like, and I'm going to pan that to 2 o'clock instead of 1 o'clock like the last one. Like, I don't care. I love just... I imagine the way they used to record, you know, back in the day, or when they're doing like pet sounds or something, and they were going to 2-track, or I think they had a 4-track tape.
Yeah, to bounce everything.
Yeah, you just like, there it is. That's the sound. And so even though I have the ability not to do that, I like it. It helps my brain so much to just commit to something and just go with it.
Yeah.
Once in a while I'll get burned where I'm like, that was too much of that thing or whatever, but I still don't even look back or try to go back and redo it. I'm just like, that's just what happened. I don't care.
Yeah. And you don't have to worry about the accidental arrangement changes too that somebody might be offended by, right? Like you were talking about Timba's showing up with all this stuff. And no, just send me a stereo track, man. I'm gonna drop it in where it needs to go.
Yeah, nobody's making any arrangement changes at this point except Chris or I or Dave has helped with some of the sequencing of like that last song on the record, which is the Romanian folk metal tune. But that's all happening on the front end, not like, 6 months after we started recording the song, they're like, oh, the bridge is awful or something. Or
how much does the music business, the business side of it, sort of intrude in what you're doing, if at all? Like, like what have you learned from being songwriters over the last 30 years, so to speak? And how much people and labels and critics and everybody sort of gets in the way of what you're trying to create?
Not really at all. I mean, the bands I've played in a stratosphere, was Trey sitting there telling me this song's too crazy for this record or so? I mean, it hasn't been a thing. The only thing I will say is like us trying to promote this record now, like this music, like Chris and I are always joking about, like it seems pretty normal to us. Like this is just like, hey, this is like a Sunday afternoon kind of listening thing for us. Yeah. But other people get it and they just do not know what to do with this thing. Even, open-minded people or whatever, like some of them, since we're metal, like a lot of the stuff gets pitched to metal outlets. And like, I think at least half of them just scratch their head and they don't even know what to do with it. It's too much to fathom that metal can be something besides like full on metal. We get a little bit of, discrimination is not the right word. I think people do not know what to do with our music because it doesn't fit in a box. Even the open-minded crew wants it to fit in some box, even though they don't think they do.
Yeah, but I got to interrupt you because metal people are not open-minded. They love their subgenres and they love to stand by them. Like if this is not metalcore, if this is not X, right? And therefore they want to be able to classify you as something. That way they can, from a media perspective, at least, media outlets like Prog Report, for example, they might be a much better fit for you because, your music is progressive minded, not necessarily traditional progressive sounds like Taken or Rendezvous Point or something like that. Right?
Yeah.
So,
So to answer your question, though, it doesn't infringe upon us other than this thing should more easily get some traction. Like it's not even that hard to listen to, but it is so hard to get outlets to even listen to it because they just don't know what to do with it. But it's frustrating when we're trying to promote it now that this thing really feels like it could be. I'm not saying it could be like U2 or something, but I think there could be a couple 100,000 people in the world that would love this record. And how do we reach those 100? Because we've only reached like 5 or 10,000 of them at this point that know who we are in some capacity. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of new ways to sort of get your material out there. The hard part about being our age, and I mean, I'm not going to, again, lump you into my age because I am older, but it is, we have seen both sides of the coin, meaning I can look back to the 70s and the 80s. Like I started drumming professionally in 1978.
Wow.
Right. So a long time ago. And I look back at the way things were, and there were certain boxes you had to fit in. You know what I mean? There were certain ways of distribution you had to participate in, or nobody was going to hear your material. And nowadays, there's too many ways, in a sense.
Way too many. Yeah.
There's way too much stuff, and it's
none of them pay.
Right. And it's not to say that I mean, it's fantastic that I can go onto YouTube and accidentally hear something today that was suggested by the algorithm that blows my mind.
Yeah.
I discovered Frost that way. I don't know if you're familiar with Jem Godfrey's material, but oh my God, it's fantastic.
I'll write that down.
It's Frost with an asterisk at the end. Jem Godfrey, like the number 3 songwriter of all time in the UK. And he started this little 4-piece progressive jazz pop combo. It's badass. It's like a Steely Dan thing.
I'll check it out, man.
Super amazing.
Say no more.
Right, but you would never know about that had YouTube not existed, because they don't get distribution. It's all managed in-house, and it's awesome when something pops every once in a while, but unless you're paying to play, chances are you're not really going to hear it. And I feel very fortunate to have heard your material and then not only stumble upon it by accident, but then discover, oh my God, I've heard some of the stuff you guys have done before you became the Teleorkestra. So
yeah,
there it is.
There are some good side effects to the horrible way things are now, but I think most of them are not. It's funny to harken back to the area you came up in and like with nostalgia, like, oh, it was so great back then. Yeah. No, it wasn't. It was horrible.
No,
but
it wasn't.
People bought records like it was freaking Pop-Tarts in the 70s. It was like they bought so many records, and the public was accustomed to that. I buy records. Like, oh, it's fun. Nowadays, like they don't buy records. Like you have to be like a real music fan to buy music.
Right.
Most people don't. So to me, that's pretty sad. And that's like the big problem with it. Oh, let's just listen to everything on YouTube or whatever. It just, I don't know. I mean, if the Beatles came out today, would they even make it? I don't think so. I really don't.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to jump in, and I'm sure Chris wants to say something too, but I have to say this but we do recognize as a species, as humans with ears, we do recognize things that sound good to us, if that makes sense. And even though the Beatles would definitely have had a hard time, I think there would have been something that bubbled to the surface, right? That caught us and caught that algorithm. And then we heard, the simplicity of this 2-minute and 20-second ditty works. And now maybe I'm fascinated. It's similar to what I would say with, say, Blur's song 2. It's 2 minutes of pure 90s badassery. It is what it is. And it popped because it popped, not because there was a lot behind it, if that makes sense.
Sure. I hear what you're saying.
So I don't know. I'm not disagreeing, but I mean, I think the great things find their way to the surface.
Usually.
Yeah.
What's
your thoughts, Chris?
I don't know. I try to have a good outlook on that, and I've never tried to make a living as a musician full time.
Right.
So my answer is coming from some spot of privilege, because I'm able to support my family doing other things. But I don't know. I try to have some hope that perhaps we're in a era right now where things are just restructuring. It's different. Like, the music business has been blown apart, and pieces are starting to be picked back up. I don't know how it will get fixed, but hopefully there will be a way forward. I think the hope, or the good side of it, is that we can make good records at home. I can go and live my life and do my professional job and have my kids.
Yeah.
And on a pretty modest budget, at my house, I can collaborate with Tim and collaborate with all the other guys in the band. And that's like such an unlikely thing. Like that would never have happened.
No,
back
that's definitely one of the good things.
in the 90s.
Yeah.
Maybe it shouldn't have happened. I don't know. We'll see. But I like that idea of it. And I mean, even back in the early 2000s, late 90s, I kind of had a vision of, there will be a time where I don't necessarily have to go and play it. What did you call it? The Rock House and
the House of Rock and Roll in El Paso, Texas.
I enjoy performing sometimes, but it's not really my thing,
Yeah.
So I kind of had this idea of, okay, well, eventually we'll get to a point where you can get your music out there and there'll be, ways to do this.
Right.
But
I mean, the problem is more than just music. It's the internet has made our sensory overload. Like before we had so much access to stuff, like a record was literally like the equivalent of like an Xbox or something, right? It was filling that role. Now I don't see what role music has for these kids or whatever. It's just not the same. They might like something kind of. My daughter even bought a record recently. There's some pop guy that all the girls like, Harry Styles.
Oh yeah.
But I was like, I hate modern music, and like his is actually not that bad. I was like, okay, that's not that bad. It's not like listening to Ariana Grande or something like that. It had a little bit more merit, but even if I hated it, I was happy that she's like, hey, can you go buy me this record? It was like, she's 13. It's the first time she's ever asked me. So we went out and we got it in the same thing. I've got like Asia. She wanted it on a record player too. So I'm like, okay. And that was encouraging for me that, but I think in general, kids don't care so much about buying a record and that it doesn't occupy that same space of entertainment that it did when we were younger.
True. I look at it as when I was a child growing up, music was the backbone of my life. It was what formed me. Nowadays, it's background music. It's not the same. It's at best. And it's snippets. It's, to quote Brad Pitt from Fight Club, it's the bite-sized thing. Everything is 10 seconds, 20 seconds, a minute. It's what's the stupid I'm sorry, you can't read my mind. The social media thing, with the 1 minute of camera. For God's sake.
Is that Instagram? No, not Snapchat?
Like Snapchat.
Yeah.
What's the one where
TikTok?
the guy skate? Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
We're old.
I know.
Like,
okay, boomer.
I don't
okay,
have
boomer.
I don't have those either.
but so like I don't use that because I don't. And yet, if I'm taking a dump, I am sitting there on my phone because I'm a freaking idiot. And I'm looking at Facebook, and then as I'm scrolling through Facebook, I get to the TikTok area, right? Because there's always the TikTok area now.
Yes.
And I end up getting caught in these stupid 20-second video snippets myself going like, oh no. Oh no! Oh no! And I'm like, motherfucker! Like, why does this happen?
Yeah, I get caught in there too.
And excuse my language, but it's just so intensely frustrating that that something so simple and obvious and predictable is something that draws even somebody like myself.
Those things have like 20 million views or something.
Yes, it's so unfair. It just sucks. So then I have to ask the question: is music a blessing or a curse? Because I think of it like it's a manageable curse. I was downloaded with skills. But I'm also a crazy person who lays in bed at night thinking about arrangements. So what's your take on that?
I would say it's definitely a gift for me. I mean, the times where I've not, I just haven't listened to it in a while or participated in it are pretty dull. And then when I finally go, oh, hey, dumbass, like the reason you're in such a bad mood is probably because you haven't sat and listened to music,
Mm-hmm.
I would never really think of it as a curse except for the fact that what we were just talking about, like if you were trying to make a living doing this and really dedicate your life to this craft and to advancing it, there's not a whole lot of reasonable or rational things. Like a rational human being would make a choice to suffer through a lot of that. So
yeah,
I think in those ways it's a curse. And music and musicians, we would probably have to line up behind a whole lot of other people wanting to complain, because I mean, look, my kids watch YouTube for hours And I'm thinking to myself, like, people have written, like hundreds of people have worked together to make cartoons and all kind of cool, like fictional narrative shows. And like, you're not watching any of that. You're watching some guy open a box of toys or something. Like,
yeah.
so, I mean, it's just
unboxing videos. What the hell is that?
I think a lot of big creative things are taking a hit, and a lot of things change. But anyway, that's my take on that.
Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry, my dog's freaking out over there.
No, music is. I mean, how do you say it? Music is like a person in a way. Like you could be a saint or a sage, and maybe that would be like Mozart or Chopin, or in pop music it'd be like the Beatles or the Beach Boys or Steely Dan, whatever you want to say. Like you could be great, you could be a serial killer, maybe that would be like the Ariana Grande or something that or you could be just kind of like really bland and flavorless, but you're not really good or bad. That would be like modern country music.
Sure.
Has nothing, but it's not evil, but it's just, God, it's
benign.
Yeah. Or maybe in a way music, because music is a reflection of who we are. So it's neither good nor bad inherently. It is a reflection of who we are. It is the universal language. It's the meeting point of the arts and the sciences, as the ancient philosophers who would write about this stuff used to say. And we don't even think about this now. Like we even think about there is so much science in music, but it's not taught like a science. Musicians aren't taught about the harmonic series. We're taught about rhythm, and that's the scientific part of numbers, but that we're not taught about, when you do a perfect fifth, that's actually the third harmonic of the harmonic series, and it resonates in a 3:1 ratio. Like we're not taught that at all. If you go to school to learn music, you're taught as music as like merely a practical art, and it's actually so much more than that. Right. Music can be like religion. It could be good, it could be okay, or it could be horrible. Whether, back in the days there was, the Hebrew had the two sects of the Sadducees and the Pharisees that would squabble with each other, and they both had all kinds of, they're just kind of superficial and harsh. And then meanwhile, the Essenes were like, most people don't even know who they were. We're up in the mountains meditating and all this stuff. Like they weren't sitting there trying to draw attention to themselves. And so music is absolutely a reflection of your spiritual state, or the state of the world. It can be the thing that lifts you up from where you are and elevates you, or a lot of people, when or it can be the thing that reflects your current state back at you, and you like that also. Like when you're like a 13-year-old goth kid and you want to hear like the dark ballad, you're like whatever. Like some people like to be elevated from where they are, and some people want to be shown something that relates to where they are. So
yeah, that's good stuff, man. You guys have really given me a lot to chew on today. I do want to say one thing before I let you go, because I do know that we could talk forever on the fringes, the outsides of music, not just the business, but just our experience in it. But I do want to say this to audiences listening: July 17th, the egg that never opened.
June.
I thought it was July 17th.
Friday, it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
I'm not even done yet, by the way. I'm still mixing stuff.
Are you serious? It's tomorrow?
Yes. And I'm going to be up all night finishing the final bonus mixes.
Okay, well, I must not be able to type very well, because I wrote in big letters July 17th, and I even was going to say, what? That's my brother's birthday, so I won't forget it. I'm a moron. Okay.
We could use that extra time. We probably think of more bonus stuff.
I like his timeline better. Do some more bonus tracks.
Well, I deeply admire you guys. I really love your patience with me, obviously being incorrect about my own preparations today, but I really enjoyed meeting you, and again, I love what I've heard. I hope people will take a chance with it. I hope it hits all the YouTube, algorithms too. We all know it tends to be a little unfair, but I think it's just a great honor to be in your world, and I so appreciate you guys being here and being so open to chat with me today. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it. Tim, looks like you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a good interview, and you kept it inside of the box, but it was exploring some corners of the box and we've had to say some of our normal spiel a lot of times, and we don't mind doing that either, but we're also willing to go, to some other things that are sort of on a tangent but related, and I think that's fun for us and fun for the listeners, hopefully. So yeah, thanks for having us. We've had a great time.